Away from all of that to Russia, where President Vladimir Putin has ordered Russia to unplug itself from the internet. Now, this has been done to test its cyber defenses. The test will mean data passing between Russian citizens and organizations stays inside the country rather than being routed internationally. A draft law mandating technical changes needed to operate independently was introduced to Russia's parliament last year, and the test is expected to happen before the 1st of April, but no exact date has been set yet. The draft law requires Russia's ISPs to ensure that it can operate in the event of foreign powers acting to isolate the country online. The law could also see Russia creating its own version of the Internet's address system or domain name system, with the idea being it could still operate if links to servers located abroad are disconnected. Eventually, the Russian government wants all domestic traffic to pass through these routing points. This is believed to be part of an effort to set up a massive censorship system akin to that seen in China, which tries to scrub out any prohibited traffic. The nation accused of planning to use submarines to cut vital international cables now wants to make sure its own economy can survive offline. We're now being joined by our Moscow correspondent Julia Chapman on the show. Julia, talk to us. How has the Russian government planned to implement this new measure?
Well, I think a lot of those details haven't quite yet been worked out. I think this is the first reading. The bill has passed the first reading in the Russian parliament, but there's still a long way to go before it actually becomes law. And there's certainly a lot of changes that could be made between this reading and the second reading, which could happen in the next few days or weeks. So as for how it would actually be implemented, the details are still as of yet unknown. But the idea basically behind this entire bill, behind this whole proposal, as the people putting it forward say, is to try to protect the Russian internet space from any attack from outsiders. So that's them saying that they are concerned that some countries, they've named specifically the US, because the US has of course accused Russia of carrying out a number of cyber attacks. They say that they're now trying to protect Russian internet from any kind of outside attack that would be in retaliation for what they say, the Americans say, has been some cyber attacks carried out by Russia. So the idea is to sort of isolate Russian internet, to have Russian internet operating on its own servers and not having to go through servers in other countries, so that it would be more secure here in Russia. But this, they say that this would only be used in cases of emergencies if there was to be an attack from an outside country.
And now we have Adrian Mars, technology journalist and IT consultant, joining us live. Adrian, thank you as always for taking time out to be with us. You know, in a sense, it wouldn't be surprising that Russia wants to log off the global internet. At the end of the day, it's trying to do what China.
Absolutely. There's two reasons, of course. One is, as you say, to do a China, to build a firewall. Russia has a history of internet censorship already. They regularly block websites that hold information that's so we say, opposed to their views. So anything, for instance, to do with the Ukraine, almost anything that they see as dissent has been blocked. They've also blocked services like Telegram, which has end-to-end encryption, preventing the monitoring, and that was actually written by a Russian. So that's one side of it, and it enables them to force all traffic to go through endpoints that are run by Russia's telecom watchdog Roskomnadzor. And on the other hand, they're also getting, as you've said, increasingly concerned by the outside world's, and particularly NATO's, and in particular the US, Britain, Germany, Norway, Spain, Denmark, and the Netherlands, who are drawing up plans by 2019, they say, on how they'll react to cyber attacks. So most famously, back in 2004, Estonia was pretty well brought to its knees, or at least its internet was brought to its knees, not necessarily the country, but was brought to its knees by a sustained Russian denial of service attack. In other words, the country's internet was flooded with so much data and so many requests. It brought, and various websites it brought TV stations, banks, government websites to their, really, down completely. And so the Baltic states, which joined NATO in 2004, are a particular target. Obviously, there's concern in meddling in elections. The UK's Brexit vote and the election of Donald Trump, of course, are said to have been influenced by Russians' manipulation of social media and fake news. So there's huge amounts of concern in the West, and Russia is afraid of retaliatory cyber attacks. Quite not surprisingly, they may well happen. So it fulfills two functions, really. It allows them to improve censorship because all traffic goes through their own services. It allows them to build resilience by having backups for things like the domain name system. This is the system that when you contact a website or send an email, it looks up who runs that server and converts it into address so your traffic can reach it. And that's a big distributed system around the world. To be truly resilient, Russia needs its own systems that can operate entirely independently. And although the internet does that to a great extent, this is bolstering that. And there's particular
Adrian,
efforts...
if I were to ask you, it's very clear what the intentions are. In fact, they seem to have a roadmap as to how they're going to do this logging of the internet. But the irony of it all is not escaping anybody. You know, we mentioned it before we came to you. The country that was willing to cut off telecommunication cables once upon a time is now wanting to cut itself off from the rest of the world.
Well, there's been concerns about increasing submarine activity by Russian subs near cables. It's not clear whether they're installing devices that will cut cables. Certainly, they don't need to cut their own cables to cut the internet off. But this is, of course, maybe a offensive action, or whether they're tapping cables or possibly doing both. So you can tap fibre optic cables, not actually by cutting into them and intercepting traffic. You can actually bend the cable and a little bit of light will leak out at the bend. So it's very hard to detect by the people at either end of the link, but you can successfully retrieve data. And it's not just the Russians who do this. You know, the Five Eyes, the Western intelligence powers, pretty well led by the United States, have been doing that sort of thing for a long time.
Russia will say we're not doing anything different. We're just taking it to the next logical step forward, so to speak. But for now, Adrian Mars, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on Your Story.